My best friend grabbed the mic at my wedding and mocked me in front of 140 guests. She had no idea my father-in-law had spent 6 weeks building a fraud case against her. Saturday, March 8th, 9:47 p.m., the Sentinel Hotel Ballroom in Portland, Oregon. 200 guests, white orchid centerpieces, the faint hum of a jazz trio winding down between toasts. Cassandra Lee wrapped her fingers around the microphone, flashed her bleached smile at the head table, and said the sentence that would cost her everything. Honestly, Nora couldn't close a deal if her life depended on it. I practically built her business. The room went dead silent. My husband's hand froze on my knee. But 3 tables back, a 63-year-old man in a charcoal suit was already reaching for the manila folder he'd brought tucked inside his jacket. I need to go back, way back. I met Cass in 2012 at a weekend woodworking class at Portland Community College. I was 22, fresh out of a cabinet-making apprenticeship, spending every night sketching furniture designs in a rented garage off S. East Division Street. She was 24, newly licensed as a real estate agent at Bowman Realty, hungry for contacts. We clicked instantly. 2 young women grinding in male-dominated industries. She'd complain about contractors who called her sweetheart during walkthroughs. I'd vent about lumber suppliers who quoted me higher prices than they gave the guys. We got each other. By 2015, I'd scraped together $11,000 and launched Whitfield & Stone, custom furniture studio, reclaimed wood conference tables, reception desks for boutique offices. The referral loop between us felt natural. Cass sold commercial spaces. I furnished them. She'd text me a client's name, I'd send a quote, and when the project closed, I'd slip her a finder's fee. Usually 8%, sometimes a flat $500. Always paid promptly. That was what best friends did. By 2019, Whitfield & Stone had grown to 6 employees and a proper 3,200 square foot workshop in the Central East Side Industrial District. Annual revenue crossed $640,000. I still designed every piece myself, still answered my own phone, still trusted Cass with my client list, an unprotected Google Sheet I'd shared back in 2016, thinking nothing of it. That was the hinge. I just didn't know it yet. Starting in late 2020, 3 of my largest commercial accounts quietly vanished. Derek Tanaka, owner of Tanaka Development Group, stopped returning emails after commissioning a $74,000 lobby installation. I left voicemails. Nothing. Lisa Moreau, who ran a chain of upscale dental clinics called Pearl Dental, canceled a $58,600 custom cabinetry order with a vague, "going another direction." And Phil Kessler, managing partner at Kessler & Briggs Architecture, ghosted a $54,800 boardroom table contract mid-negotiation. Just gone. Each time I shrugged it off. Clients flake. The economy was strange. The world was strange. And each time, Cass consoled me over wine at her apartment. "Their loss, babe. You're too talented for people who can't commit." What I didn't know, what I wouldn't know for years. Cass had forwarded each client's inquiry to a competing furniture firm, a cheaper mass production outfit called Loft & Line. She'd intercepted emails using the shared Google Sheet, replied from a personal address, and told each client I was overbooked or scaling back. She collected referral kickbacks totaling $187,400 over 3 years, never reported them to Bowman Realty. And she kept showing up to my birthday dinners with a bottle of Willamette Valley Pinot like nothing had changed. By 2024, I'd rebuilt my revenue but never understood the dip. I blamed COVID slowdowns. 2 things nagged me, though. In October 2023, I ran into Derek Tanaka at a Portland Design Week mixer. He shook my hand and said, "No hard feelings about you passing on our project. Cass explained you were swamped." I smiled, nodded, confused, but I didn't press it. Then in January 2024, I noticed Cass had bought a new BMW X5, the $68,000 trim, on a real estate agent's commission income that, by my rough math, shouldn't have covered it. I mentioned it once over coffee. She laughed. I had a great Q4. I let it go. I was planning a wedding. I'd met Elliot Ashford through a mutual friend in 2022. He was 36, a structural engineer at KPFF Consulting. Calm, steady, the kind of man who measured twice and cut once, which I loved because I was the same way with wood. We got engaged in August 2024. Elliot's father, Gerald Ashford, 63, had retired from Deloitte after 31 years as a forensic accountant. Gerald was quiet, methodical, barely said 2 words at most family dinners, but he noticed things. And what Gerald noticed over Christmas dinner in December 2024 was the way Cassandra Lee talked about my business, like someone who owned a share she'd never paid for. It started with a forwarded email. In early January 2025, I was cleaning out my inbox on a Sunday night, deleting old threads, archiving junk, and I found it. A message from January 2021 that I'd been BCC'd on by accident. From Cass's personal Gmail to Lisa Moreau. It read, "Hi Lisa, Nora's completely overbooked through spring, but I can connect you with Loft and Line. They'll match the quote. Let me know and I'll coordinate." I stared at my screen for 4 full minutes. I wasn't overbooked in spring 2021. I was desperate for work. I'd laid off 2 part-timers that February. I'd lost the $58,600 Pearl Dental job and never understood why. And there it was, 1 paragraph from my best friend. I didn't confront Cass, not yet. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I called my future father-in-law. Gerald Ashford picked up on the second ring. I read him the email word for word. He was quiet for 10 seconds. Then he said 5 words. "Send me everything you have." Over the next 6 weeks, from mid-January through late February, Gerald went to work. I gave him access to the shared Google Sheet, my email archives, and every invoice from 2019 to 2023. He treated it like any Deloitte engagement: timeline reconstruction, cross-referencing, source verification. He built a spreadsheet with 47 columns. He wasn't angry, he was precise, and that was scarier. But I couldn't leave it alone completely. On February 2nd, I tried one soft confrontation. I needed to see her face. I invited Cass for coffee at Courier Coffee on Southeast Stark. We sat at the window table. I ordered her favorite, oat milk latte, extra shot. "Hey, random question," I said, stirring mine. "Do you remember that Pearl Dental job, Lisa Moreau's cabinetry order?" Cass didn't blink. "Vaguely. She flaked, right? She told me you connected her with another company, said I was overbooked." Cass set down her cup, slow, deliberate. "Nora, that was 4 years ago. I honestly don't remember. Maybe I was trying to help. You were stressed. You had more work than you could handle." "I wasn't overbooked, Cass. I was panicking about making payroll." "Okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. Lisa probably misremembered. You know how clients are." She showed me the email from your Gmail. Cass's jaw tightened, just for a second. Then she leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. "So you're going through old emails and building a case against me 2 months before your wedding? That's really where we are?" "I'm asking you a question. And I'm telling you, I helped you for years. I sent you more business than anyone. If one client got redirected by accident, that's not some conspiracy." She said the word accident like she'd practiced it, like she'd been waiting for this conversation for a long time. I nodded slowly, paid for both coffees, left without another word. That night, I sat in my workshop until 1 in the morning, running my hands over an unfinished cherry wood credenza. The grain was tight and clean, honest material. I called Gerald. "She lied to my face," I said. Smooth, fast, zero hesitation. Gerald wasn't surprised. "People who steal from friends don't stumble over the story," he said. "They've rehearsed it. That's actually useful. It means she's not going to stop, and she's not going to come clean." which means we build the file properly and let the evidence do the talking. I agreed. No more coffee confrontations. No more chances to spin. Gerald's first outside move was contacting Derek Tanaka directly. He called on February 8th, introduced himself as my father-in-law, and asked one question. Did Cassandra Lee tell you Nora was unavailable for your lobby project in 2020? Derek didn't hesitate. She did. She said Nora was scaling back and recommended another company. I was disappointed. I wanted Whitfield and Stone. I'd seen your work at the Ace Hotel and had my heart set on it. Derek agreed to sign a sworn affidavit that same week. Gerald had his first witness. Within 10 days, he had 2 more. Lisa Moreau confirmed everything over a phone call that lasted 40 minutes. Phil Kessler sent a 3-page email with dates, dollar amounts, and screenshots of his own correspondence with Cass. By the end of February, Gerald had 3 signed affidavits, a forensic timeline spanning 4 years, and a growing folder of redirected invoices. He kept it all in a single manila envelope in his home office in Lake Oswego. Cass had no idea. She was too busy planning her maid of honor toast. Gerald worked from a folding table in his home office in Lake Oswego, 15 miles south of Portland. Same method he'd used for 3 decades at Deloitte, auditing 7- and 8-figure fraud cases. Build the timeline first, then fill it with source documents. No assumptions, no shortcuts, just paper. By February 20th, his file was thick. He had the forwarded email chains from Cass's personal Gmail to all 3 clients. November 2020 to Derek Tanaka, January 2021 to Lisa Moreau, March 2022 to Phil Kessler. Each one claiming I was overbooked or no longer taking commercial work. He had the 3 signed affidavits. He had the Google Sheet access log showing Cass had opened my client contact list 47 times between 2020 and 2023, with access spikes right before each client vanished. And he had something I didn't expect. He'd contacted Loft & Line's accounting department directly, framed it as a bookkeeping reconciliation inquiry, and confirmed 3 referral payments to Cass. $31,200 for Tanaka, $24,800 for Moreau, $22,400 for Kessler. Combined with her standard Bowman Realty referral cut on the redirected jobs, total diverted commissions reached $187,400. Gerald retained a lawyer, Rachel Yoon of Yoon & Pratt LLP, 18 years in commercial litigation, specialty in trade secret misappropriation. Rachel drafted a civil fraud complaint and a cease and desist letter, both ready to file, both sitting in a folder on Gerald's desk, waiting. Meanwhile, Cass was fully committed to her role as maid of honor. She organized my bachelorette weekend in Bend, cabin rental, wine tasting at Faith, Hope, and Charity Vineyards, spa day at Shibui Spa. She gave a tearful speech at the rehearsal dinner on Friday, March 7th, calling me the sister I chose. She posted Instagram stories tagging me with captions like, 12 years and counting, and ride or die. She hugged me so hard I could smell her perfume on my jacket for hours. What made it worse, during the bachelorette weekend, Cass casually mentioned she was courting a big new client, a hotel group renovating 6 properties. I recognized the description immediately. It was the Ashford Group, a boutique hotel chain run by Gerald's former colleague, Martin Cho. Cass had found the lead on my client prospect list, the same shared Google Sheet. She was doing it again, in real time, weeks before my wedding. I excused myself to the cabin bathroom and texted Gerald. She's going after Martin Cho's hotel group. She pulled it from my sheet. Gerald's reply was 3 words. Good. Letter. He didn't explain, but he added one more exhibit to the folder, a screenshot of Cass's access log from that same week, timestamped February 22nd, 2025, 11:14 p.m., showing she'd opened the Prospect tab while sitting in the cabin we were all sharing. The smoking gun landed 4 days later. On February 26th, Rachel Yoon's paralegal ran a public records search and discovered that Cass had never disclosed her referral income from Loft and Line to Bowman Realty, a direct violation of her brokerage agreement. And, more critically, she'd never reported it to the Oregon Real Estate Agency. Under ORS 696.301, licensed agents are required to disclose all compensation received in connection with real estate-adjacent transactions. $187,400 in undisclosed referral income wasn't just a betrayal, it was a licensure violation. Rachel drafted a formal complaint to the agency's licensed law enforcement unit, ready to submit the Monday after the wedding. Gerald's plan was surgical. He didn't want a scene. He wanted a sequence. If she praises Nora, we file quietly on Monday, he told Elliot. If she makes it about herself, we adjust. He printed the complete file, placed it in a manila folder, tucked it into his suit jacket.
Rachel Yoon was on standby by phone. The civil complaint was already e-filed as a draft in Multnomah County Circuit Court, pending one click. There was one more piece. My workshop manager, Ben Okafor, 41, a master woodworker who'd been with Whitfield & Stone since 2017. Ben had always distrusted Cass. Back in September 2021, he'd overheard her on the phone in the workshop parking lot saying, "She doesn't even know what her clients are worth." He'd told me at the time. I brushed it off. Now, Ben provided a written statement corroborating the call and confirmed the revenue dip that had nearly cost him his position. Gerald added it to the folder. On the morning of March 8th, Gerald pressed his charcoal suit, slipped the manila folder into his inside pocket, and drove to the Sentinel Hotel. His son was about to marry the woman whose best friend had stolen $187,400 from her, and the audit was already complete.
The reception was in full swing by 9:30. The jazz trio played something slow and warm. Champagne flowed. 200 guests filled the Sentinel's grand ballroom. Exposed brick walls, Edison bulb chandeliers, Douglas fir beams overhead. Elliot had given his toast. My mother had cried through hers. Then Cass took the mic. She started fine. "I've known Nora for 12 years. People smiled. But by minute 2, she'd pivoted. She talked about her own career, how she'd guided me through the early years, how without her connections, Whitfield & Stone wouldn't exist. She was looking right at me when she said it. Honestly, Nora couldn't close a deal if her life depended on it. I practically built her business." The room went silent. My mother set down her fork. Elliot's hand tightened on mine under the table. 200 people holding their breath. And at table 9, Gerald Ashford stood up. He didn't rush. He buttoned his jacket, picked up his champagne glass, walked across the ballroom floor to Cass's table, table 3, near the dance floor. He set down the glass. Then he reached into his jacket and placed the manila folder beside her champagne flute. Unmarked, plain, heavy. "Cassandra," he said. His voice was low, but it carried in that silence the way only quiet voices can. "You should open that before you say anything else." Cass laughed, nervous, too loud. "What is this, a gag?" "It's an itemized accounting of $187,400 in referral commissions you diverted from Nora's company between 2020 and 2023. There are 3 client affidavits, email records, and a civil fraud complaint filed with Multnomah County Circuit Court. There's also a letter from the Oregon Real Estate Agency. They'll be reviewing your license starting Monday." Cass's face drained. She opened the folder. Her hands were shaking. Pages slid against each other. I could hear them from across the room. "I spent 31 years finding people like you," Gerald said. "You were not difficult to find." He walked back to his seat, sat down, picked up his dessert fork. The jazz trio started playing again. I don't remember who told them to. Monday, March 10th.
Rachel Yoon activated the civil fraud filing in Multnomah County Circuit Court, case number 25CV-08341, Whitfield versus Lee. The Oregon Real Estate Agency opened a formal license review the same week. By April, Bowman Realty terminated Cass's contract after an internal audit revealed the undisclosed referral income. She hired a defense attorney, but settled out of court in May for $143,000, the maximum her savings and a home equity line could cover. The remaining $44,400 was structured as a 2-year payment plan. The agency revoked her license on June 12th. Violations of ORS 696.301 and ORS 696.282. Derek Tanaka, Lisa Moreau, and Phil Kessler all came back to Whitfield and Stone. The Martin Cho Hotel Group, 6 properties, and estimated $320,000 in custom millwork, signed with me directly in April. In late April, Cass sent me a 4-page handwritten letter. She called it an apology. It included the phrases, "I was in a dark place," and "You were always the talented one," and "I hope someday you'll understand." I read it once at my workbench, sawdust settling on the pages. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer beneath a stack of sandpaper grits, and went back to work. Some friendships don't end with a conversation. They end with a folder. 9 months later, December 2025. I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor of my workshop, hand-sanding a black walnut tabletop. It's for the Ashford family cabin on Mount Hood, a gift for Gerald, who never asked for anything in return. My dog, Copper, a 10-year-old mutt with gray around his muzzle, is asleep on a pile of sawdust beside me. The shop radio plays low. Through the window, rain streaks down the glass in the particular way it only does in Portland. Elliot texts me a photo of the cabin's dining room, freshly painted. The caption reads, "Table goes here. Dad won't stop talking about it." I smile. Brush walnut dust off my jeans. Keep sanding. 12 years is a long time to trust someone who's stealing from you. But here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't undo the work. The tables I built are still standing in offices across Portland. The company I made with my own hands is still mine. And sometimes the best wedding gift isn't on the registry. Sometimes it's a retired accountant, a manila folder, and the quiet certainty that the numbers never lie.